Aloha, my name is Mina Ellison. I'm the curator here at Kona Historical Society. And welcome to our exhibit. It's called Kona Ranching and Kona Cowboys, Our Way of Life. And it presents the story of Kona's unique ranching history through photographs, artifacts, tools, and we really try to have the voice of our kupuna come out in the exhibit. So part of the unique story of Kona's ranching is that in 1793, that's when the first cattle arrived as a gift from Captain George Vancouver to Kamehameha at Kealakekua Bay, which was at the time the seat of the Hawaiian government. So it was a gift to Kamehameha, but it also was a way for Captain Vancouver to ensure that future navigators, future travelers to the islands would have a fresh source of beef and fresh food, fresh meat for them to eat and enjoy. He suggested to Kamehameha, hey, maybe you should put a kapu on this for 10 years so that the cattle can multiply. And so Kamehameha ordered the building of what we call the Pa Nui, or the Great Walled Lot, which is over in Lehu'ula above Kainaliu, and it is a large enclosed area which encloses nearly 400 acres of land, which protected the cattle from people, from themselves, and the cattle were able to multiply greatly and ultimately become a menace to society. But then in 1820, Governor Kuakini built the Kuakini Wall, which was over 5 miles long, stretching from Kailua past Keoho, over 5 miles, to protect the villages, the coastal villages, from all of these wild cattle. So that's the original, the origin story of cattle in Hawaii. Ranching doesn't come until a little bit later, after the Bullock Hunters, the primary role was to actually control the cattle and hunt them without the use of horses. So yeah, we have some images here, the map of the Pa Nui, right over here. And this is the Pa Nui Great Walled Lot, and then the Kuakini Wall, a portion of it right along here. Yeah, so Kona has the first cattle paddock and cattle wall in Hawaii. So it's something that, a lot of people don't know, but it's part of Kona's history. So we're very happy to be able to share this part of the story with the community and with visitors to Hawaii. And here's a picture of Uncle Billy with the wall itself. And it was 8 feet across and 8 feet tall. So it's pretty enormous. Pretty enormous. I think people kind of assume that Kona ranching are people who aren't from here, immigrants and things. But no, initially the cattle were Kamehameha's. So I'll back up just a little. In 1830s, Kamehameha III requested that these vaqueros come from Mexico, from California, but they were Mexican, to teach the Hawaiians how to be cowboys. So that was going on in the 1830s, where they brought their tools, spurs, the wide-brimmed hats, the saddles, that ultimately evolved to suit Kona's diverse geography and landscape. And then in 1848 was the Mahele, which granted private ownership of land. So with these traditional land boundaries, the ahupua'a, a lot of the ranches followed those boundaries of the ahupua'a. So that's where you get the larger land tracts, owned by Hawaiians and also by people who had come from foreign places, yeah. And on the other panel, it talks a little bit about the, horsemanship of Hawaiians as well. That, most families had horses and were very skilled and comfortable with the horses. So, the emergence of the paniolo was possible because of Hawaiians' knowledge of the land and familiarity with their landscape, and also their ability to train and work with the horses, which were such a valuable tool, necessary tool for the job. It's interesting to note that the Bullock Hunters that were hunting the wild cattle, they did not use horses. So it wasn't until the vaquero came, they were very skilled with the horses and and with the equipment, so they really taught the Hawaiians how to be cowboys. They were basically shooting them, or they would actually build these or dig these pits and chase the cattle into these pits. So it's an interesting part of the history too. The government would grant permission to these Bullock Hunters. Most of them were not from here. They were foreign, but they definitely served a purpose to help get rid of the cattle that were becoming dangerous to society, which is frightening to imagine, because on the other side we have a pair of the horns. They're big beasts. They really, really are. So some of the other things we have exhibited here are these Layhulu, and we wanted to tie in the reliance on the bird catchers, the Kia Manu, who were so familiar with the land, and they actually helped mark the boundaries of the Ahupua'a for these what would become ranches and homesteads as well. So what we have here is actually the kaula ili, or the lariat of the brother to my great-grandfather. That's one displayed right here. You know, these cowboys never wasted anything. They were very, very resourceful. So you can see here some of the products that were handmade by the cowboys. Even these spurs were also handmade. And of course the pack saddles was very important. They needed to make quality tools because their lives depended on it. They needed to have strong kaula ili. They just to get the job done and make sure they lived another day. And you know, this is just one of the thousands of artifacts that Kona Historical Society is able to take care of and preserve in our archives. Just a real honor for me personally. But I hope the community can come and see some of their families' real craftsmanship in the artwork that we have here, and something to be proud of. So one of the other things that is probably not as well known, well, to some people, is the commerce and the large commerce that was going on in Kona at the time, and the amount of imports and exports that were coming and going from Hawaii. This wall shows some of the products that would have been sold in the 1890s, and this is more or less our installation for the H.N. Greenwell Store Museum, and we wanted to leave it so that people could get a glimpse into what type of products ranchers and residents of the area were purchasing and using at the time. So one of the exports in Hawaii were the cattle. But before we were actually shipping cattle, the main exports from the ranches were hides, tallow, goat skin hides, and also butter. A lot of people don't realize how big of an industry butter was in the dairy industry in Hawaii, where the butter was shipped to Oahu and also to the continental U.S. We have some wonderful, amazing photos of cattle shipping. There was a lack of deep water harbors in Kona, so what they had to do was drive the cattle down to the beach, get them into the water, and well, they would lasso the cattle and swim them out to these long boats, and they would have to get 5 or 6 on each side of the longboat, which would then ultimately meet the steamer out in deeper waters. And say in this picture, they would hoist the cattle up one at a time, and the cattle would be placed on the deck of the ship, and they were sent to Oahu. And it was, you know, talk about the skill of the cowboy. You know, you think of cowboys in the American West, they did not need to have this specific skill set to have horses that could actually chase cattle on the beach like this. So they had special horses specifically used for cattle shipping. They had to be able to handle these cattle in the water. They were typically the larger horses. And with that, they also had special saddles used for shipping. That this is the Hawaiian tree saddle, and it was reinforced with this metal on it so that it could really handle the push and pull of trying to get the cattle into the water. And it has an extended pommel on that too. Part of our collection also is the Hula Bell. And that was one of the ships that was taking the cattle. It was part of the Inter-Island Steam Navigation Company fleet. The last shipping was in 1952. And after that, the technology allowed them to bring the ship straight to the dock, and they no longer had to hoist them up individually, which I'm sure was a sight to see. To see a large animal swinging in the air like that. So part of this exhibit, we really wanted to bring in the families of the cowboys and the ranchers who made the whole industry really take off in Hawaii. It's obviously a large part of our community and continues to be ranching is still a large part of our community here in Kona and all throughout Hawaii. So over here we have some artifacts and objects that were used on the homestead, or for recreation or for cooking, and we really wanted to present what life was like on these homesteads, and that everyone was involved. It wasn't just the cowboys working, it was the children, there was cow ladies, I guess you could call them, but I think they'd still be called cowboys. So the photos on this side of the exhibit depict the lifestyle, the work, the recreation the activities that were being done by the entire family, more or less. Yeah. Although I'm not a rancher myself, it is deeply important to our family, what my great-grandfather has done and who he was, and the story of all of these ranches, which you have families that continue to do ranching 5 generations, for 5 generations, 5th generation cowboys that are still going up Mauka, checking water tanks and living the lifestyle. It's impressive, and they're dedicated to taking care of the land and perpetuating this tradition as well. So it's alive and well, the cattle ranching community in Hawaii. So it's something to be proud of for all of us. Yeah, and it's a little known history. I mean, you go to Waimea and you can see the pastures and you see the cattle. Kona is a little bit more hidden. The cattle are further up Mauka, maybe they're Makai. You're not going to see it as easily as you might see in other places on Hawaii, on other islands as well. So it's an important story to share with everyone.